for turning up today. We are from the 8th Air Force Society that meets every Wednesday noon in Bloomington. About 50 World War II pilots and crew. 3 of these monkeys in the front row used to come to our meetings, but they're going to come again one of these days, right? Okay. Any of you are welcome to come to our Wednesday noon meeting if you are interested in aviation or World War II history. There's living history there. Yesterday we had a program about bombing over Germany. They were firebombing Hamburg. And sitting at my table was a fellow who was on that raid in February of 1945. So there's real living history on those Wednesday meetings. And one of the pilots from our Wednesday group is a Navy pilot who flew off the USS Saratoga and what? Yeah, Dick Mann flew off the USS Saratoga, and the Monterey flew F6F Hellcats flew missions over Okinawa and Iwo Jima and Japan. And here is Dick Mann, and we're filming this too for our own use, and Dick Mann's son Joe is here to help too. So thanks for coming today, and here's Dick Mann.
Okay, we'll see if we have things working here. What I did, I took a lot of the my memorabilia material that I have, and I made transparencies out of it. The quality isn't too good, but in fact, all the stuff you're going to see today is pretty much homemade. All you need is a copy machine and some transparencies, and you end up with a transparency projector like this. So I'm here with the courtesy of the 8th Air Force, and my hat's off to the 8th Air Force guys. There's several thousand of them. Several thousand of them were prisoners of war in World War II. And the B-24s, the B-17s over Europe. There were 10 men on each plane, and every time the airplane went down, 10 guys went down. And many of them went down, actually thousands of them went down. So my hat's off to these people. I think they are a much rougher deal than I did. So what I'm going to do is try to put the thing together here for you. Okay. Now let's see. I'm going to start over here and I'll hand it to you. Trying to figure out which direction to go here as well. So let's go back to the beginning here and see how this looks up here. Yeah, I guess I agree. Yeah. In 1941, in fact, November 1941, I just graduated from high school and was in my first year of junior college. And at that particular time, everybody had a job because things were not going well in Europe. Hitler overran France, most of Europe. And their demand for war goods was really peaking at that time. And anybody that wanted a job could get a job. We were really swinging along good. We didn't pay a heck of much attention to what was going on in the Pacific at that time. But see how this looks, yeah. Is that package? No. Yeah. And we didn't hear too much about what was happening in Japan and Asia at that time, because the whole emphasis was on European, where the disaster was happening. So, give you an idea of the home front at that particular time. An ice cream cone cost 5 cents. You could buy a bottle of Pepsi-Cola or Coke for 5 cents. Bread was 10 cents. If you made $50 a month, you were in all heaven. You were doing real well. We didn't really know too much was going on European-wise here. But then came Pearl Harbor, And just to show you for, get this right, yeah. This is Japan right here. Kyushu, Honshu, and Hokkaido, the three main islands in Japan. These are the areas that Japan controlled. Manchuria, down into China, down Indonesia, New Guinea. So their holdings, military holdings were vast at that particular time. We didn't know it. The only thing I do remember is that Japan was buying a lot of scrap iron from the U.S., what was in the newspapers. Other than that, you didn't hear about anything in the Pacific at the time of Pearl Harbor. Tokyo is right here, Iwo Jima is here, Okinawa is here, here's Pearl Harbor over here. That's a big ocean, let me tell you. So that's about as far as we got on that. So, so all of my classmates, I think there were 425 in my class. I was in Fort Dodge, Iowa, of which half were boys. And I think of 207 boys, I think every one of us ended up in the service somewhere at that time. One of the worst things that could possibly happen, if you were a 4F, you didn't qualify to get in the service. That was a disaster. People really looked down on you. I remember one of my good friends had real bad vision. He couldn't get into anything. So he was eating carrots, drinking carrot juice at that time, trying to improve his vision. And finally he did get in. He ended up as a parachute rigger on one of the air bases. So I did, in mid-42, I enlisted in the Navy. There was what they called the V5 program for Navy pilots. You're supposed to have 2 years of college, pass a rigorous physical examination, and you had to do the equivalent of 2 years college if you didn't have it. So I did pass. I went up from Fort Dodge. Remember, we went by train in those days. If you wanted to go anywhere, you went by train if it was a long distance. Went up to Minneapolis, took the physical up here, passed the test and so forth. I didn't know what was going to happen. So in December of 42, now that was 1 year after Pearl Harbor, actually, I went to Illinois State Normal, which is a college. It's in Bloomington, Illinois. I guess that works pretty good that way. In Bloomington, Illinois. And we had classes half of the day, we flew the other half of the day. And we flew Taylor Craft Cub type airplanes. I did solo there after about 8 or 10 hours instructions. So I passed one hurdle. I couldn't fly an airplane, a little bitty airplane. It was fine anyhow. I'll go through this, our bases rather quickly if I can. From there I went to Iowa City, Iowa Pre-Flight, which is called the E-Base, Elimination Bases. Here again, we had 1/2 day in college classes over there. Aviation, whatever we need, aerology and so forth. And the other half was to tune you up physically. We had every kind of sport you could think of except baseball. We had wrestling, soccer, football, gymnastics, basketball, anything else you could think of. One of the parts in that, we had swimming too. You had to be able to swim a 1/4 mile, and you had to be able to tread water for 1 hour. And if you didn't pass that, you were washed out. I was a patrol leader at Iowa Pre-Flight, which was I did the marching drill and all that stuff. You know, we marched everywhere we went, so I had a little edge there. From there, I went to pre-flight school in Ottumwa, Iowa. We flew Sterbans. A Sterban is a biplane, 250 horsepower, an acrobatic plane, and the emphasis was on acrobatics there. If you didn't have good acrobatics, you were washed to something else, or you had to fly some other type of an aircraft. At Ottumwa, Iowa, let's see, who was it? We had Dick Nixon was the legal officer at Ottumwa. I knew who he was, but I didn't know him personally. I did move Jerry Ford later on. I'll tell you about that a little while later. From there, we went to Pensacola, Florida. We flew SNJs, which is AT-6, for tractable landing here. And we graduated, got our Navy wings, and became a genuine ensign at that particular point on there. From there, we went to Vero Beach, Florida. I flew F4S, which is a fighter. It was a, in fact, I have a picture here of this here. Did I do that picture here? I'll bring up that picture a little while later. First, Wildcats, and then Hellcats. I'll show you a little bit on that, on the Wildcat and Hellcat. This is a picture of, this is a Wildcat. It's an F4F. In fact, I've got this backwards, let me flip it here. There. I'm the guy right here. These two guys right here were killed in training. Both of them crashed, killed. And it was a great airplane. I had one of the cylinders popped on one of my flights, and I was trailing smoke. Got back to the base, survived that okay. We did a lot of gunnery over the Atlantic Ocean. We tow a sled out there and shoot at the sled. It was kind of a mesh screen to drag behind the airplane, you know, the tow plane. You dive on the thing, and they would dip your 50 caliber bullets. In fact, I have one here somewhere here. This is a 50 caliber bullet. They tip it in paint. So one guy could have blue, another green, another white, another black, so forth, so they could count the number of hits you got. You got scored on your targets that way. Well, after flying the Hellcat for a few months down there, we graduated to a Hellcat. And I have some models up front here, so to get a good look at the Hellcat here, you'll notice that you just sit real high in the plane. You have wonderful visibility out the front. Belly tank underneath. The Hellcat carried 150 gallons of gas. The belly tank is also 150 gallons. Without the belly tank, you were a good flight. You could last for about, a little over 3 hours before you ran out of fuel. With the belly tank, you could get at least a good 5 hours. That was a first-line airplane. A couple more pictures to show you what they look like on a carrier. See the pilot sitting right in here. He's got a belly tank on here. Now this guy's got a board here. You notice that? That's a navigation board. It's slipped right under the front panel of the airplane. So you put all your code names and everything on there. Anything you want to know, you can pull it out in flight. Have everything written down in advance. The Hellcat is 2,000 horsepower. It do almost 400 miles an hour at a specific altitude. If you were sitting in the plane, this is what it looked like. Whoops, that's the wrong one.
It's at night.
Copy over this. There's what you want to see. A lot of people always ask me, well, where's the gun sight? Well, there's the gun sight right there. The refrigerator stuff on the windshield there. So these are all the main instruments that you have in here. This is the RPM, manifold pressure, climb and descent. This is what they call a needle ball. Over here you have a magnetic compass over here. You even have a clock here. So if you want to start this airplane, here's what you do. Down here, these are the wing locks down here. I don't know if you see them there. And the wings fold on the Hellcat. These are the mechanical locks down here. These are the gun chart. Your 50 caliber guns, they carry 6 50 caliber guns with 400 rounds each in the guns. And they would, on the tip of the bullet, the part that goes out, they were belted tracer, armor piercing, and incendiary. Tracer, armor piercing, incendiary. So you can see the tracer is all you see. So you see every third bullet you fire, you see. So down here you could select whether you want to drop bombs or fire your rocks. You have 4 rocks to fire. So to start the aircraft, the first thing you do is to set the brakes. You don't want to go anywhere in case the thing starts. So from there on, you prime the engine 3 times. You can't. The throttle is over here. You can't see it. You put it on automatic bridge. You notify the guy down on the crew with the plane captains down there with a CO2 bottle. In case the thing catches on fire, you're going to put the fire out. So you inform here, you're going to start, so you'll wind up over here with your ignition switch, and hopefully it'll start. And it usually did. But you had a very exact procedure that you went through with that. So if you back up a little bit, same thing, you see the rubber pedals are down here. Over here you have, this is all electronics over here. You have 3 systems in it. You have a mechanical system, a hydraulic system, and an electric system. So just to give you an idea, if I can get this paper off this thing. In some of these books I have, some of these memorabilia books up here, in fact I have the official, this shows all about the Hellcat. This is what we studied, learned. Notice there's 32 items on here that you have to know where they are and what they are. Here's the landing gear lock here, tail, there's the throttle over here. Prop pitch control and so forth. This goes on and on and on. So, when you get right down to it, flying the plane is easy. You got to learn where all this stuff is to know what you're doing. This is on the left side. This is the throttle right here. Mixture control, prop pitch control. There's tail wheel lock over here. There's a total of 58 items here that you should know where they are if you're going to fly the airplane. On the other side, on the right side, this is all the electrical equipment on the right side, which is your radio, radar, so forth, all your light controls, tons of switches there. It totals over, if you put the whole thing together, I guess I didn't make a slide of that, you'll have a total of 82 items that you should know where they are. Okay. Oh, incidentally, from when we were in Vero Beach, Florida, after we learned to fly the Hellcat, we went up to the Great Lakes, and you did your first carrier landings on Lake Michigan. They had a little cruiser up there, a paddle wheel cruiser. They built a flight deck on it. The name of it was the Wolverine, and we had to do 4 aircraft landings in Lake Michigan. And right now there's a lot of Hellcats in the bottom of Lake Michigan, which they never pulled out of there, because I'm sure a lot of them went overboard. So that was the next thing to cover. From Vero Beach, Florida, we went to an air base in Atlantic City, New Jersey. This is a row of Hellcats along here. There's a bunch of Corsairs. I got an ex-Corsair pilot down here. These are more Hellcats here, but they had about close to 100 aircraft in Atlantic City. Now, I was lucky enough to be in Atlantic City during the summer months. The air base was 10 miles inland from the ocean. So in the air base during the day it was about 90 degrees. But you go into Atlantic City, it was about 70 or 75 degrees in the summer. I mean, who wants to be in the summer in Atlantic City? You know, and we had a Navy base there, and all the guys that lived in Atlantic City all went in the service. So the gals from Philadelphia would grab a bus, take them 1 hour to get from Philadelphia into Atlantic City. I mean, there were such a few amount of time in Atlantic City, and so many girls in Atlantic City. It was real tough duty. we had a couple married couples who wanted to live ashore that's off the base, which they did. And so they asked, I was one of the guys, they asked, well, how would you like to, look, we're going to rent a big house, which they did. You got to pay for, you know, 1/5 of rental fee, and you can live with us in Atlantic City in the summer months. I mean, you talk about a piece of cake. Now that was really it. So I lived off the base the first time in a year and a half in Atlantic City in the summer. I mean, you know, where else in the world could you be? Good luck. I met a very nice gal in Atlantic City. We were not happy at the time. And she had her dad worked for the city, which is very nice. So we sort of have an inroads on what's going on in Atlantic City. And she's a very nice person, very nice family. I got to know them real well. But I call that's the one that got away. Now, I'll show you the one that, 5 years later, the one that didn't get away. And that's my, I get choked up. That's my wife of 62 years. Okay, we'll do some stuff on the squadron here. This was our squadron insignia. It shows VF-43. Actually, it's Chris. Should have been like this. This is the island of Japan. It really should be like this. Okay, so I had this on crooked here. But we were in 3 different squadrons. Originally 48, and as we advanced to a different assignment, the people stayed the same, but the squadrons never was. The squadron numbers were changed. So this is what the squadron looks like. This is on one of the carriers. So there I am right there. These are all the pilots here. Here's the enlisted men that belong to our squadron. We had a total of 42 pilots on there, and enlisted men. We had another. These were with us all the time. We have some more partials over here. So we have about right around 60 in our squadron, and we lived together for 2 years. I'm going to get you in the Pacific here pretty soon, so don't get up and leave. Okay. This is on one of the carriers. These are the guys I flew with. You flew with the same people all the time. You always flew in a division of 4. You always had 4 men, a division of 4. So this is our leader here. There's Rupert. He was our executive officer, teal and blue. Rupert and blue have both died since this time. Teal's still here, lives on the East Coast. I think I'm still here. The most of the name down here is Swindeman down here. My legal name is Swindeman. When I got out of the Navy, the company I worked for says, hey, it's too long, too confusing. Nobody could spell it anyhow. So I cut off everything except the last 4 letters here, which is Mann. So you'll see some Swindeman stuff. Our division in flying here. So this is how they, notice these are all 4s, 4 here, 4 here. So this is our lieutenant commander, skipper here. I flew in the 2nd Division, which was Vulture 2. So this would be Vulture 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, always Vulture 2-4 here was my designation. Now we had a recent squadron reunion, and I wanted to show you what these guys look like today. I haven't changed very much, I don't think. I mean, you know what I look like. I thought you'd like to see what the other three guys look like. Okay. This is the part of our permanent enlisted men that took care of everything. It took 12 men to keep one airplane flying. This is a total unit, the whole works with that's your gunnery people, fuel people, arms people, mechanicals, specialized electrical, radar, everything to go with it. Took 12 guys to keep one airplane in the air at that time, and probably still does. Our officers, this is part of our ground officers. This is the background here is on the Monterey. It shows the Monterey aircraft shot down, the ship sunk, bombing rays here. These are sitting ducks down here. That's when you get them on the ground. These are the 5 guys. These are all lieutenants. I mean, they all ranked me. I was Lieutenant JG at this time. So in fact, two of them were attorneys. We have our own doctor, Dr. Werner Holt. They traveled with us. They lived with us. They kept all the books, kept us going. I have some other pictures. You've seen this one here. Here's the muscle man up here. Quality's not too good. This was, I had a helmet flash gear on here and we were under attack. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. This picture down here, that was in a landing craft to go ashore at one of the fleet anchorages. Okay, now we've got to get out in Japan here. Japanese homeland. Showing Japan, superimposed Minnesota and Iowa to show you the physical size of it. It wasn't all that big. Actually, we started out down in this area down here, started getting airfields, working up our way up to Tokyo, which is right up here. To show you how the fleet works, this is they have the fifth fleet and the 3rd fleet. And they have like the 3rd fleet was 3.1, 3.2. This is a division. We had, in the center we had a battleship. And you had 4 carriers. In red, notice the 4 carriers would be around, this is the center. Around that you had destroyers. All these green ones around here are destroyers. So you travel like this, all going the same direction, of course. And then when you would turn, if you wanted to turn, say you're going due north, this way is north, they would call ahead, they'd say make 20 knots, turn to 090, which is 90 degrees. You didn't follow the leader like this, you went like this. You maintained your position, see? So no matter what direction you went, or let's put it back again, you were, you're always surrounded by, shows about, what they got here, around 7 or 8 destroyers were always in front of you. And they were pinging for submarines all the time. Also, the destroyers had 4 turrets with 2 5-inch guns on each. And if we were under attack, they would open up with these 5-inch guns. They call it 5-inch 3/8, about 16-foot barrel on them. And they used proximity fuses. When the shell would go up, if it would get within 60 yards of the target, it would explode automatically. And the amount of firepower that they put up was awesome. Also, the battleship in the middle had about 4 or 5 turrets, or 6 turrets, so the same thing. All the carriers had, most all of them had 5-inch guns too. So you see some of these pictures with the sky just full of these air bursts. That's how they got there. And in addition to that, they had 40 millimeters, which would go up to 10,000 feet. That's a shell about the size of a Coke bottle, a small Coke bottle. And yes?
And what is the initial CV?
C is for carrier, V is for air, as far as I know. The destroyers were DD, battleships were BB, these were CV. There were 3 different, there's CVs, which the large carriers, and there was a CVL, which is a fast carrier, which is a smaller one. I was on one of those too. And the CEE, it was an aircraft carrier built on a fast freighter type of a hull, an engine. They could make about 20 knots. Everything in here could make at least 30 knots. So that's about 35 miles an hour. And when you look over the side and you're going at 30 knots, you look at that water going by, man, you are already going, you know. And it takes a while to get up to that speed, and also they burn a lot of fuel when they get up to that speed. What they always try to do is to try to get 30 knots of wind across the deck. So if an airplane comes in to land and you come in at 70 knots, and then you've got a 30-knot wind across the deck, your relative speed to the carrier is 40 knots. So you're coming much slower from the ship side, you know, than you are actually. You're doing 70 knots airspeed, but your relative landing on the ship is 30 knots. So when they launch aircraft, when you're in the combat zone, you always have a combat air patrol up, sometimes 2 of them. That's 4 fighters. Always have 4 fighters up. They put one over the ship, and they put one in between the ship and Japan, usually when we flew. And so about every 2.5 hours, they had to go into the wind, land those aircraft, take off with another 4 or 8 aircraft as combat air patrol. And of course, radar was searching the screen all the time, looking for trouble. Okay. Now, over Japan, I said, we started out in Okinawa down here. I was on the Saratoga. There's Okinawa, Iwo Jima. This is Kyushu. We started in working over the airfields out in this area down here, working our way up north. So I think this would be 4 divisions, like 38 point, 38.2, so forth. So we have 4 aircraft carriers per division here. So we got 16 aircraft carriers here. Now, you can only last from maybe 7 or 10 days in a combat zone. You're going to run out of oil. Everything runs on oil, you know. And so out here, about 600 miles, they would have all the freighters, all the tankers are out there. So at least once a week, you'd have to leave this area here, go up and get reprovisioned. Now, sometimes they would, maybe half of them would go back, half of them would come in. So they're rotating them. But we had an awesome amount of firepower going up and down the coast of Japan. Okay, we'll get on the Saratoga now. The Saratoga designation was CD3. It was one of the old carriers. The keel was laid in the 30s. It was an old carrier, and it was a fast carrier. It could do over 30 knots. It had some unusual properties, though. It was an electric drive ship. They had steam turbines that drove generators, and in turn powered the motors to turn the screws on the ship. It was sort of one of a kind in that way. Let's see. Oh, one of the other things, it took a half mile to make a 90-degree turn on the Saratoga. Everything else in the fleet could do it in a quarter mile. So if the Saratoga was in this one group, it slowed the whole thing down from their turning. It'd take a half mile to do the turn. So they split the thing off after a while because of this. It was one of the old carriers. All the new ones could do it in a quarter of a mile. To give you an idea of what happened here. Oops. Where'd we go? There we go. Give you an idea. This is a hangar deck. I don't know if Saratoga could be very similar to it. And those here say a man working on a plane up here. These guys are throwing some balls down here. Look how big this thing is. It's almost like a football field indoors. Or like a super gymnasium in a high school, but 3 or 4 of them lined up in a row. But if you bring these airplanes down with their wings full, they have 2 elevators, one in front, one aft. And I remember landing on a carrier, onto the elevator, and boom, you go down. And the thing is still turning up when you're going down. They take it down that fast. They were fast elevators. There's a lot of guys sitting over here. I think this could have been a church service. It could have had a band or something over here. I don't know exactly what it was. But these are Hellcats in one of the carriers. Before you would go out and get in there, this is Ulithi Lagoon. They had, at one time, they had, I think it was 635 ships at anchor in Ulithi Lagoon. It was the greatest concentration of ships that the world will ever see. They had all the aircraft carriers, they had battleships. There's a battleship here, there's a tanker, aircraft carriers, there's a whole row of them right here. Destroyers, merchant ships of every type. You had, beside the tankers, you had provision ships, you had ammunition ships, you had repair ships. All the big ships were powered by steam. The smaller ones, and a lot of the freighters were diesel. And I had a cousin of mine, Donald Swindon, lives in Detroit, was in charge of all the diesel operations in the Pacific Theater. He said we couldn't train these people to be diesel mechanics. We trained them to be part replacement people. Something go wrong with the diesel engine, they just unbolt it, screw another piece on there, and away they'd go. But the amount of work, it was just awesome to put all this thing together, provision all these ships, and keep them all, and that thing really amazed me. Now, in the at Ulithi, it had to have a little fun too. You got complete anchorage, so you'd go ashore. This was the island of Mann. I don't know if you see the guys in here or not. This was the biggest beer garden in the Pacific. In fact, it was probably the biggest beer garden in the world, because we had 600 ships out there getting ready for a major strike on Japan. And all these guys would come ashore. You'd go to the side of the ship on a cargo net into a landing craft. Would take you in, and you got 3 or 4 hours to get all beered up and come back and think you had a good time. Let's see, let's skip that one. On the Saratoga, I was only on the Saratoga about 6 weeks. We left Pearl Harbor, went up to Ulithi Lagoon, went up and started hitting the islands of Japan. Airfields, shipping, Navy bases were our targets on that. They're all military bases. So when we fly in, we'd go in there 30 or 40 planes sometimes in strength. They would never come up. I never saw a Japanese plane in the air. Some of our men did, but I never saw it. But I was in on several raids over Japan. But we didn't last very long on the Saratoga, because they split off the Saratoga. We were going to go over to, so where's that last one? They were going to put us over here. Iwo Jima was put over here. So you were to take the Saratoga over here, and we were going to be part of the intercept on the kamikazes coming into Iwo Jima. And we got over there, it didn't work too well. So we got about 5 o'clock, the general quarters sound, and manned your battle stations, and about I would say 2 or 3 minutes later, I heard some of the 5-inch guns going off, and then wham, boom, wham. We took 5 hits with kamikazes. It took the, this is part of our flight deck up front. Remember, we had a deck full of airplanes. Every plane's got 150 gallons of gas in it. Very, very flammable. Notice this one down here. The prop is turning up on this one. Is running. The guy, a good friend of mine, Turk Murphy, was flying. He wasn't flying. They wanted to go up and re-spot the plane. And it takes about 20 guys to push one of these planes around on deck. They did have a tractor, but it was kind of limited to what they could do with it. And he happened to be in there. He didn't even have a headgear on. No flight suit. He just got in, started the thing. He was going to taxi back. So here's the elevator here. Notice this? The elevator fits in there. But they hit the front part of the flight deck here. Now, everything was on fire. Here's also part of the flight deck here. The whole thing was burned out. These planes were burning. This is in the hangar deck. The planes, everything caught on fire in the hangar decks. Everything they had on board at that time, full of gas, they shoved them over the fan tail of the ship, shoved them right over the ocean. They didn't even take the parachutes off, didn't have time. And they had the crews up there trying to put the fires out. They seized about 2 or 3 planes. Other than that, everything went overboard. The whole dang hangar deck was burned out and so forth. This shows you what a Hellcat looks like. There's a couple guys standing here. These are all burned out. They had automatic sprinklers that showered salt water down, of course. They put the ship in about an 8-degree list, so it would go overboard. And I think about 125 were killed in that. Some were, I see conflicting numbers on that thing. Same song, second verse, it's about the same thing. Okay, so the Saratoga was knocked out. We went back to Pearl Harbor to get a new ship. We lost 4 guys that were airborne on that. That's how we left. Most of us were not flying that. Could have been somebody else who was combat control. But the ceiling was very low. They came real low. Radar didn't pick them up until it was too late. So we went went back to Pearl Harbor, reformed the squadron, and we came out on the USS Monterey. Oh, wrong one, there we go. See the number 26, USS Monterey. This was a fast carrier. It had a great place out on the bow here. We've got a little sunshine out there. This is the gun mount right here. This picture was taken, there were no aircraft on the ship. Here's what it looks like with some aircraft on it. Whoops. Quality's not too good, but you can see what it is. These are all Hellcats here. Back here, here's the elevator here. Another one back here, got 2 elevator boys. Here's the place we used to go off when we were doing nothing. And there's nice sunshine out there, which is great. So you see these guys sitting on here? You get a nice ocean view when you sit there, you watch the dolphins going up and down, real pretty. A couple more pictures on the Monterey. Whoops. That's a Hellcat. Just taking off. There's a catapult line here. There's a number 26 on there. There's a catapult crew here. Things were pretty tight aboard ship. So one of our recreations, we could play basketball. And I got to know a fellow on the Monterey, by the name of Jerry Ford. He was one of the linemen. He was a gunnery officer, a line officer there, an athletic director on on the Monterey, and he was, I got to know him fairly well. He did, why don't you get a bunch of your guys and come on down, we'll have a basketball. This is when we're, you know, back away from Japan, refueling and so forth, had nothing to do. You can see the guys sitting around up here, this is the elevator drop down, this basketball thing right here. And you know what happened to Hume? Hume knew about Jerry Ford, he became president. If I had known, seen in the future, I could have got to know Jerry better and got a nice cushy job in Washington, lived high on the hog and had a good time. So there's Jerry Ford right here, some of the other guys. His pictures, thank you, Kevin. He did the research on that. Kevin Callahan got this picture here. Here's your basketball hoop up here. One of the bad parts about that, the deck was always had a lot of oil on it. So when you bounce the ball in basketball, you know, it does hit the ground, and you get a lot of soot coming out of the stacks. So you had this dirty oil you'd get off the basketball. You'd get on your hands, you touch your clothes, you got this grease on there. It was a miserable way to play basketball, I'll tell you. But we had fun. We did it anyhow. Here's a few deck scenes here. This is on a landing craft going in. To get a beer here, it's on the flight deck here. Here's a plane here. This is a Hellcat, went over the side. Apparently the cable hung and it stayed along the catwalks on the side here. Here's one down here. Here's two of them. A Hellcat here and a Hellcat here. It had a barrier. If you miss a wire, you hit the wire, the steel barrier. And it would flip you on your back usually. It had to stop you. Because forward of the barrier are all these planes that have just landed. So this, apparently one over the top and creamed a bunch of Hellcats here. And guess what happened to these things? Shove them overboard. You know, they were indispensable at that time. This shows the rockets under the wing here. Incidentally, I've got all kinds of pictures up here. You can take a look at them, squadron pictures. A couple of Hellcats down here. So come up and take a look afterwards. What the heck did we do as a squadron? So these are our squadron statistics. Try to get that darn paper off there. There we go. This shows the date up there, February 50. Oh, I did find out that I flew several sorties over Kyushu, the lowers from the Saratoga. They didn't appear in my logbook. I found this out by searching. So I think we lost some of our records. This is our squadron mission here, showing where we did, what we did on it. This is all. Here's February. That's when the Saratoga, went and did a raid on Tokyo. And the Iwo Jima task group, this is May. This is all May. This is all over Japan. Kyushu, that's Southern Islands. Owatonna, there's more Owatonna. Continuing. This is July. This is 1945. Tokyo, Northern Honshu, Tokyo Bay, Curie. So we went in, we had specific targets. We go in and force. One thing I do remember is we were going in a raid on in the Tokyo Bay area on the big Navy base there. I can't think of the name of the base. We flew in and we were over the clouds. Clouds were about 10,000 feet. We were above that. And as we approached there, we saw Mount Fuji, the smoke hit. It was just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful scene. And I felt flying into there to raid this air base. And I thought, what am I doing here, you know? So it was such a gorgeous thing. How stupid man is to do things that cause all this problem. There you go. This continues through July. And this goes to August 13th down here. These are airfield installation strikes and so forth that are our guys. But I wasn't in on all of these, I was in on some of them. I have a log that...
What's the rescue subs?
Pardon?
The rescue subs?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Off the Japan, when we went on a raid, we knew where a submarine was, a rescue sub, where their position was. So if we had any wounded planes that could still fly and not make it back, they'd always go out for the sub. And they knew where the subs were, they knew what the code names were on the subs. They would pick a code name that showed the distance and the compass heading from a specific point in Japan, so we could get there. In fact, I flew over some subs to give air support when we took some of our guys out.
What does CAP stand for?
Combat Air Patrol. CAP's Combat Air Patrol. Yeah. So Combat Air Patrol was they'd have a low cap and a high cap. They put one at 10,000 feet, one at 5,000 feet. And then they put the Combat Air Patrol in between our ships and the Jap homeland. So if the radar would pick them up, they would zero IUN from there. Now, I'd also, can you take that? In my logbook, which is here, it's all the records of all the flights where you are. You're welcome to look at this stuff. Please do leave it behind though. Okay. This is May 1945. Let's see if I can get up a little bit. This is out of my logbook. So the aircraft F6F, this is the serial number of the airplane, duration of the flight, 3.3, 3.3, 5.5. That's a long, you had to have a belly tank. You couldn't do it without a belly tank. The type of fight, there's a combat air patrol, strike. I can't remember what some of these are. Maybe here's the other, I guess this side you can see here. It basically is the same thing. That's in May. The date is over on, it doesn't show the date. It doesn't in the book. It didn't catch the date. Here's another page. Just missed this section over here. It was too wide to get a copy of. Now, oh, where's the prop table? Oh, there. It's over here? Oh, here we are, here, yeah. I had, my prop went in full pitch, just like you're in high gear. If you're in high gear going 10 miles an hour and you stamp on the gas, what's going to happen? Nothing. So you couldn't land aboard a carrier unless you're low pitch, which puts you in low gear. So if you're low gear and you stomp on the gas and your car, boom, you'll take off. So you had to have that capability. So I went my prop into the high pitch. So I couldn't land on the carrier. I had to do a water landing. So I was at the fleet, so they said land well ahead of the fleet. So I picked out a destroyer ahead of the fleet, and of course, didn't put the wheels down. I put the flaps down, but I put the flaps down and really lost power, which I was in full high pitch. I landed ahead of the destroyer came up, and pull up right beside you, look up at that. Boy, that looked awful big, I'll tell you, when you're in the water. I just walked out on the wing. The plane sinks in about 30 seconds. I disconnected the parachute and the rubber life raft. I didn't even take it with me. Left it in the plane. And they threw a ladder over the side. I climbed, took all the strength I had to climb up the ladder. I I wondered why in the pre-flight you had to climb up a rope 12 feet from a sitting position, hand over hand. And that was part of the program. You didn't make it, you got washed out. So I could see the reason for that. But one of my summer jobs, I always had a job. One of my summer jobs was working on a pop truck during the summer. I worked on a Pepsi truck. And this is before the wheel was invented. So I have a case of Pepsi in each hand. The driver would go in and write up the order. He says, 5 cases of Pepsi, put them in the basement. In each hand, 30 pounds in each hand. So all summer long I'm carrying these things in. And by the end of the summer I had arms on me like an 8. So when I had to climb up the rope, that was really no problem. Because I could go on twice that far. But it really came in handy when I climbed up the rope to get into that destroyer. So I was on the destroyer for 3 days, which was just great. Because I was up on the bridge all the time with all the captain and the whole bit on that. And while I was on the destroyer, they opened up with their 5-inch guns, which was fantastic. So, you know, boom, this cork was showering down here from these guns. They rapid fired at about, they could shoot 8 or 9 per minute with proximity fuses on them. So that the firepower was awesome on those destroyers. Some of the destroyers did get some too. They got hit by kamikazes. But it was a great experience for me. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Okay, yeah, through that now. Okay, this is another squadron. We have 42 guys. The Caterpillar Club are guys with parachute. Something went wrong, they couldn't make it. In Atlantic City, I did forget this. I had 2 situations in Atlantic City. I was dogfighting another guy. We dogfight each other, and he pulled up, and I pulled up right behind him. I thought he would pull through like this, but he didn't. We went down like that. So I went down, and I looked up, and I saw this thing coming at me, full throttle, flying. He hit it with his prop, hit the tail, got a piece of my tail off. I did get back to base, and you know, I had the controls were pretty soft by that time. I got back and landed okay. I always said that's the worst piece of tail I ever had. Another one, another time, you know, night flying, we did a lot of night flying in Boston, Swan Naval Air Station in Boston. We lost 2 guys out there. We had carburetor trouble. In Atlantic City, we were coming back, and it was at night, and I was tail end Charlie, number 4 in the division. I came back there, and every time I'd move the throttle, you jockey the throttle a lot to keep in formation, to think that the engine would pop and backfire. So I thought, well, I'm going to quit moving the throttle, which I did. So I called in for emergency landing, and I wouldn't touch the throttle. So I came back real hot. I didn't even cut the throttle back to land. I landed real tight, put the wheels and flaps down, landed, and kapoom. I pushed the throttle forward to taxi in, nothing. It died. So that was at night. If you'd come down in the day and see where you're going, you could do pretty good with wheels up, landing on that, and survive. A lot of guys got in night, it was very bad. We lost a couple of guys in Boston. It was a carburetor problem, what it was. And it killed 2 of our guys in training in Boston. Okay, see how that turns out. Thanks. This shows you where we went. Here's Honshu, Hokkaido. This is where our ship went. They tracked the ship all over the place there, I think. This is USS Monterey, Air Group 34, April 26, 1945, August 15th. We had a refrigerator with us. Refrigerators were very hard to get. One of the guys, Dad, was vice president of one of the companies that did produce, you know, the U.S. quit manufacturing refrigerators. They didn't make cars, they didn't make anything. They made tanks, airplanes. They made 12,000 Hellcats. The Hellcat, 12, can you imagine 12,000? What a waste. P-47s, about the same amount of planes were produced. And so they didn't manufacture anything. This shows a shrapnel hole from a suicide plane in Saratoga, February 25th, 1940. Our refrigerator had a Purple Heart. This shows our stripes here, everywhere we went, and so forth. I get another shot of that, I think. Let's show all the guys' names on here, squadron names, so forth. Okay. On the 15th of August, when Japanese surrendered, incidentally, tell you about the Jap surrender after the atomic bomb attacks and so forth. The Japanese people had a culture. The family, if you did something to degrade or insult the family, it was very, very bad. Some of them would commit harikiri. Also, the other thing was big in the Japanese culture was their Emperor Hirohito. And when they surrendered, President Truman insisted it was a total unconditional surrender, and they laid down their arms, and they went to Hirohito to approve this. But otherwise, the Japanese people, most of them probably would have fought to the death. We would have had the invader, and it would cost thousands and thousands of lives. So Hirohito, their culture actually sort of saved the day, because they did surrender, they did lay down their arms. And without his okay on it, I don't think it would have ever happened. So we went back to the USA. We came back through the Panama Canal. We were launched off the coast, the East Coast, in Virginia and Atlantic Ocean, up to New York. We went up, we circled Manhattan a couple of times, landed at the Navy base up there, went in town that night, and you couldn't buy a drink. I mean, every time they said, walking, they want to buy dinner, or buy a drink, or whatever. And boy, were we glad to get home. Okay. So see, here's, one of the guys was quite a cartoonist. In fact, he became quite a famous architect. His name was Leffler. So here's from the USA, from Tokyo Bay to the USA. This guy down here, sun tanning, chow, food, dates, all that stuff. Here's our Monterey going back to the USA. I thought it was a very nice cartoon. Okay, I'll give you the stats now of what we did, and then we're through. The hours flown by squadron from June 44 to 45, 17,000. Average hours per pilot, 486. Total hours flown in the trading area, 9,000. Combat, 7,000. Enemy planes destroyed, 49.5. Enemy planes probably destroyed. Enemy planes damaged. I got a lot of them on the ground, never got them in the air. Enemy warships damaged, 6. Enemy merchants, so forth. When you read down here. This nautical mile scheme, 66,000. The circumference of the world is 25,000. So that's over 2 times around the world on shipboard. You know, but remember, you're moving 24/7. You never stop on shipboards. You rack a lot of hours. So, one more cartoon here. Here's what the pilot's thinking of: peace, girls, booze, bed, all that good stuff. Here's the Japanese flag here. How about that? Okay, our squadron, as some of you guys know here, we have 44. Here's the guys that have died. in our squadron so far. So we have, how many left, I don't know, but not a heck of a lot, so I'm privileged to be here, yes, sir.
How did the Hellcat compare with the Japanese Zero?
We could outrun them, they could outturn us. You never tried to dogfight a zero, because they would turn inside if they get on your table. So we did what we called weave, like this, called the fetch weave. Yes, sir.
At the beginning of the war, before there was radar in these planes, how did the carrier planes navigate to where they were going, and how did they navigate coming back? I'm a pilot, and I had a crude instrument called MDT.
Yeah.
This was long before the PORs and Lorraine.
Right, yeah.
But at the beginning of the war, how did these Navy pilots ever find their way without radar?
Okay, on about every 45 degrees, they had a different code, you know, a Morse code sequence, like an S, and that. So before your little flight tray that you pulled out and carried there, you had the code for what the carrier was sending out. And if you get high enough, they use VHF, very high frequency, which would not travel the curvature of the Earth. And the combat air control would pick you up on their radar and guide you in from there. So they have you make a right turn or something to identify you, make a turn to a certain compass heading. They could identify from their radar pickup. But you always had that code. So, of course, where you took off and where you landed were two different things. So the carrier may be 50 miles away from where you took off. But the ocean all looks the same anyhow, so, you know, you have nothing to look at. So that's how they did it. It worked very well.
You tell by that code.
The code, yeah.
Whether you were left or right.
Left, yeah, right, yeah. But and you knew what the compass heading to hit.
If you have a question, I have a mic here, and I'll raise your hand, I'll give you the mic. Here we go.
I just had two questions. Do you remember the name of the destroyer that picked you out of the water? DD-629?
629, USS Abbott.
The Abbott.
You Abbott.
Abbott, okay. Second question, where were you during Halsey's typhoon?
We were back in Pearl Harbor. That was
were you?
That was after the Saratoga got hit. We went back to Pearl Harbor.
I mean, that raised hell with a lot of ships, including mine.
Right, yeah.
I got a book there about it, and I just finished it.
I was glad to miss out on that.
Did you, what was the general thought of the feelings toward Halsey after that debacle?
Oh, we didn't even know it.
Yeah, but I mean, word got around eventually.
Well, in the combat zone, you didn't even know about that.
I mean, Halsey took a lot of hell for that because he didn't get his ships out of the damn typhoon area.
Right, yeah.
Gee, a lot of people died over, you know,
Oh, yeah.
1,000 people died of horrible deaths
They did.
in the water.
Yep. The destroyers, a couple of destroyers sunk in the flight decks on some of the carriers had scooped up so much water it bent the flight decks down. But I was lucky to be in Pearl Harbor at that time. So. Yes.
When was the Saratoga taken out of service?
After we got hit, they took the thing back to Bremerton, and they patched it up, and they used it as a transport vessel, because they could load the hangar deck full of airplanes, they'd load the flight deck full, so they could probably get 200 airplanes aboard that to take them out to Pearl Harbor to get them into combat. So they were never in combat after that. And the Saratoga is now at the bottom of Bikini Lagoon. They used it in the atomic test. The underwater atomic explosion sunk it. Yes.
Hey, two questions.
Sure.
Number one, where the men were playing basketball,
Yeah.
there was a no smoking sign. Was that the policy throughout the ship?
Okay.
No smoking?
Everybody smoked in those days, as you probably know. But when they would refuel or whatever they say, they put it over the loudspeakers, no smoking, you know. Smoking lamp is out, exactly. Smoking lamp is out. You've been there.
The other question, were the Hellcats equipped with the Spitfire engines?
No, they had Pratt & Whitney 2,000 horsepower engines. They carried 2,400 rounds of 50 caliber, which I've talked about before, and they carried 6 rockets. So we could select rockets or bombs, and they had 2 500-pound bombs normally. They could carry 1,000, but we always used 500. And you could select which you wanted to fire. Or when you get it in the airplanes, the 50 calibers are always on safe. You had to charge them, which is a hydraulic thing. You could charge them. Otherwise, you couldn't fire them. We didn't have gun cameras, so when you pull the trigger, you took a picture. Yes, sir.
That spare fuel tank was right underneath you. Didn't that make you a little nervous?
No.
I mean, if ammunition, fire,
If we would fly into, if we knew it was a long mission, we'd take off with the fuel tank. Just before we got to Japan, you pull the lever, the fuel tank would come.
oh,
We had 3 tanks. We had a main tank, 2 wind tanks. So we could drain each tank. We'd always go back to the main tank. So we'd of course use the droppable tank first. Yes, sir.
Did you run into Joe Foss at all?
No, never did. Nope. Never did.
You heard of him, no?
Oh yeah, sure have. You bet. South Dakota, you bet.
How long did you have to rest and recuperate between your sorties? Because I could imagine, you know, with adrenaline and stress and probably losing weight from sweating and everything, you must have been pretty well exhausted every time you got back. Did you have a long recuperation time?
But yeah, usually you only fly once a day. And if we were on a long mission and so forth, you'd come back, they would interrogate everybody. And you got a little bottle of brandy, not so big. So, which is very welcome. So what we would do after a while, we'd say, hey, we'll save these. So when we go out to refuel, we could have a big time, which we did. So okay, saved 2 or 3 of them. We'd go back to refuel it, and we were having a good time, nothing to do, and we'd take care of the brandy then. Yes, sir.
If any of you are retired 20 years or more, they still have 2 Air National Guard units here. You all may know this, but you can fly space available free to many places wherever they're going on that particular assignment that particular month. I was lucky enough once to go all the way to Hokkaido that way. I mean, it's a long trip. You're in a C-130. You fly that C-130, and you bring your own food. They'll have a bucket of water there for you, your bathroom, the rest of it's on your own. But I got to Hokkaido, this was about 10 years ago. And I thought that was interesting in the fact that I went into the town. We have a base there, I think the Air Force base there still, even now. And I went into town just to walk around. I had nothing to do. But up till 10 years ago, the local Japanese older people, when they saw you walking on the side of the street, they would cross over to the other side of the street. There was still animosity, even 10 years ago. But that was a fun trip.
One thing
Alaska, then up the Aleutians.
Yeah, well, that was great.
It was about a 3-day
Sure.
trip.
One thing I did mention, when the Japanese surrendered, we were under attack all day long because some of the die-hard were still coming out. The kamikazes were trying to get, in fact, they hit. I saw the Enterprise get hit. In that formation, we could always see the battleship in the middle, and sometimes you could see the other carriers in that H type of formation where you went like this. I saw the Enterprise, which is CB6, I believe it was. Incidentally, I did land on the Enterprise once. We couldn't find our own carrier because the weather was so bad. They took us aboard for overnight, which is great. But, see, what was I going to mention? Well, I do have some memorabilia up here. You're welcome to look at all the stuff here. Oh, I know. When we surrendered about 3 or 4, a week later, they wanted to put air power over Tokyo Bay and the Tokyo area. So they launched 1,000 planes from carriers. They did all the carriers, launched everything they had. I was in on that flight, and a couple of guys were killed that day, incidentally. And to get 1,000 planes all going in the same direction that went around in a great big circle like this, they finally, the leader headed on in. So we flew over Tokyo, 1,000 planes. That must have been an awesome sight. We landed that. A few days later, we went into Tokyo Bay where they signed the official surrender in there. So I was an anchor on the Monterey at that time. But of course we couldn't see anything.
Can I mention, if anybody has not been on the honor flight, who have been with in World War II, it's a wonderful experience. Leave Minneapolis, Humphrey at 6:30 in the morning, come back at 10:30 at night and visit all the memorials in Washington, D.C. I think there's only going to be about 1 or 2 more flights. So if anybody wants to go on it, please register at honorflightmen.org. You only have a few more times. It's a wonderful experience.
Questions?
Okay, would World War II guys stick your hands up or something? How many guys we had in here World War II? You haven't seen this yet. Wait, no, World War II guys. Stick your hands up. You see where you are. Okay. Anything else? We're adjourned. Oh yeah, one more.
If y'all are interested in books about World War II, I go to some simple places like Goodwill. Any of the Goodwill stores. Look, out of those books, you see a lot of books like I picked up this last week. Another place, the half-price bookstore. They have used and new books. It's harder and harder to find.
Thank you.